Tae Nam is a major figure in Silicon Valley. He is a managing partner of Storm Ventures, which has been very active for a number of years. And 4 years ago, he published a book on entrepreneurship called Survival to Thrival, which has since become a major brand in the field with a website, blog, a regular podcast, a new edition of the book. I wanted to share, oh, this isn't going to work. Well, anyway, there were two illustrations from the book I really liked. One was the surfing unicorn. If you go to his website, which is the one is sort of in the back surviving, the other one is riding the wave and thriving. And also he has this very simple logo of the sort of inflected arrow, which is the long grind, and then you get to the pivot point of go to market, and then you really take off. And we certainly hope that XTC is part of that pivot point to help you move from survival to thrival. And we were very privileged to have Tae present last year at XTC's Bootcamp in what was immediately one of the most popular sessions, and we're further privileged to have him present his latest material this year. So with that, Tae, and again, my apologies, please go ahead.
No, thank you very much. I really am excited to do this and appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone about this topic, which interests me quite a bit. And at the same time, as people have questions, feel free to ask me as we go through this. First of all, just want to see if people can actually see the screen.
Seeing the screen and have you spotlighted. So
okay, great. So, and then later on, if you'd like a copy of the presentation, just ask Victoria. Victoria, Sam will send you a PDF of the presentation. So it'll be available. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to find product market fit. And I'm going to start off by saying that maybe something a little bit controversial, which is, in my experience, finding product market fit, frankly, is not that difficult. You know, most of our companies that we've seen have always found product market fit. But the problem has been finding the right product market fit is challenging. And that results in the difference between what was referred to earlier, this picture of, you know, whether you're paddling or surfing. And so how do you go from being a tired paddler to becoming a surfing unicorn? So in our book, we outline sort of a standard path on how to find product market fit. It basically, the idea is, you know, you start with the founding idea, and then for 70% of the effort is like focus around the initial target. 30% is to sort of look at adjacencies, is to listen to potential customers, try different things, rapidly integrate, and then work with customers to see which one works. And so it really comes down to just really two things. One is you got to keep listening to your teaching customers. And second, you got to keep iterating, even if you acquire some technical debt. So with that, what you have is a rapid path to product market fit. And I want to share with you an example of one company that found product market fit relatively quickly, and we outlined in the book. The name of the company is Engagio. And they went from start 0 to 1 million in ARR in 16 months. So they started the company at time 0. And the first thing they did is they went and talked to 50 potential teaching customers. It was just the two co-founders. They went off and talked with them. It helped that the co-founder of Engagio was co-founder of Marketo. So it was well known in the marketing space and had access to a lot of customers. But the first thing that they did is they went and talked to a lot of customers. Then the second thing is that based on customers that they're talking to, they can sense whether or not how interested they're signing up for a beta program. And they used that to test whether the customers were interested or not. And with that, they identified the urgent pain. And so with that, then they figured out what they wanted to focus on. They closed their financing, they hired their first employee. In month 6, they went into their first beta as they're listening and rapidly iterating with customers. They're at 6 employees now. And as I mentioned, their first beta. Around month 9, they get their first paying customer, and using payment as way of measuring, do you have product market fit? Because now you have customers that are willing to pay. And then as they get to month 14, they're at 25 paying customers. They've converted 6 out of the original 20s into paying customers. And what they're seeing is now other customers wanting the same use case as well. So this is an example of a company that went relatively quickly in finding product market fit, but it's just based on the idea of you want to listen to your teaching customers, you want to rapidly iterate, so you get your product, you get the customers to test it, and then you get it to product market fit as soon as possible in that particular case. But what we found is that including companies like Engagio, that finding product market fit quickly is great, but just because of that, we don't have like all of a sudden the company becomes a surfing unicorn. We face certain challenges that for companies, even though that they have product market fit. The first challenge that we see, unfortunately, more often than not, is companies have product market fit, but then customers later churn, especially after the champion leaves. And so this was something that really puzzled us a lot. And I want to share with you what I think is the reason why this happens, and also the way to sort of prevent this. And that is, what we're seeing is adoption by the early champion is not the same as adoption by the customer. So in companies like Engagio, other cases, when you're going out early, what you saw is you're talking to a lot of early champions that love new things. And so you get product market fit with them, but that's not the same as getting product fit with the customer. And we see this problem when it's time for renewal. So 1 year later, when the customer's up for renewal, we see this. And I think what we see is a false positive from the early champions, who are basically innovators. And so the real test becomes, does the customer renew after the champion leaves? And the way I look, and I was thinking about this, because, as I said, we've been going through with this in several companies, is then it occurred to me that Jeffrey Chasm many years ago had wrote a book about crossing the chasm. And he described customers' journey in this manner, in that in the beginning you have innovators, then some section of early adopters, then there's a chasm that you have to cross before you get the majority of the customers, and then the laggers that come with it. And he refers to this as the technology adoption lifecycle. And what we've seen is, for companies like Engagio, is that they were able to find product market fit for the innovators. Innovators want to be known as leaders in their field. They want to be cool. They want to leapfrog others. They want something that no one else has. They're willing to take risks. They're willing to do a lot of work themselves. In many ways, they think like a founder. And so you have these innovators who are willing to be early adopters for a product. And so it can give us a misleading signal as to product market fit. Whereas when you look at the product market fit for the majority, what we're talking about is the reluctant buyer who's not actively looking for a new tool, who basically likes to sort of do work as is. And so they need an urgent pain to do it. They need a must-have to do something. They want an easy product which works out of the box with good support, and want it to be a safe decision. So the complete opposite of a risk-taking innovator. So if I go and give another example of that, is there's a company, Airspace, where I was the founding CEO of, and I hired the first 24 employees, a company that we incubated. And what we did is we actively interviewed a lot of customers in different categories, as you see on the left-hand side here. And then about half of them became beta. And then some of the beta, most of the beta became early customers. And there were many companies that we talked to early on that never became a customer or even a beta until 3 years later. And a good example of that was Microsoft. I mean, we have others here like Boeing, NTT Labs, and so forth, but Microsoft was the key. And as we were learning about this space, and Aerospace was one of the first enterprise Wi-Fi companies, we found that Microsoft person was very good at serving as the North Star in terms of what enterprise customers should want, and clearly could explain the requirements and what was required. So that was very helpful in sort of serving as a North Star of where we wanted to drive the product. But it took us a while to basically transition product market fit from these early customers, these innovators, to the majority. But once we had that, then obviously the revenues really took off. So how do you know that if you have product market fit? And the best indicator of this is net dollar retention, or you could look at it as gross retention too. Net dollar retention answers the question, are your existing customers buying more or less? So if it's 100%, then they're buying the same amount. If it's 200%, it's doubled. If it's 50%, they're buying 50% less. So it's a way of just asking a simple question, are your existing customers buying more or less? Gross retention measures the question, are your existing customers staying with you? So if it's 100% gross retention, then you have zero gross churn. So this is another company worked with. And when invested early on, like in 2013, we thought they had product market fit, but they turned out they really did not. We did a lot of due diligence. The customers loved them. Soon after investing, 2 of their largest customers churned or were churning, and the ARR was going down. That was a complete shock to us after we did such extensive due diligence. And what happened is that after we invested, the champions left, and as a result, customers churned. So that was that's when it really hit me that you get, just because you have adoption by these innovators, it doesn't mean you have adoption by the customers. Since then, if we look now at the company is doing very well, and you look at their net retention, and it's like after 4 quarters, it's 179%, 191% after 2 years. So net retention is doing very well. So net retention, gross retention, as I say, is a good way of measuring whether your customers are staying with you or growing with you, and it's the ultimate measure of product market fit. The only problem is that it's a lagging indicator. So once you know that net retention is good, it means everything is working, so that's good. Or if it's bad, that things are not working. But in business, what you want are leading indicators. Because if you drive business by lagging indicators, you'll always be behind the curve. So it turns out that what you need is you need to find an early indicator. And the best early indicator can see is if you can find the key usage metric, which measures your customer's progress along the customer journey. So if you have a key usage metric that when you first hit, you can say that the company achieved first value, where the champions gets recognition from the boss or the peer, like things are going well. Then another key usage metric, which is that the product becomes standard workflow, so will survive the champion's departure. Then the next is full deployment, and then when there's new use cases. So you have a customer journey, but mapped next to the customer journey is understanding this key usage metric to figure out whether or not your customer is on the right path or not. The usage metric differs from company to company, but if you don't have it, it basically means you're flying blind, and that the metric of you'll have is net dollar retention, but it will be a lagging indicator, as I mentioned. So when it comes to like first value, Mark Robich gives a talk which I really like. He goes where he actually gives a very good talk about finding product market fit. And he mentions that for like these three companies, for Slack, if 2,000 team messages were sent within 60 days, or in Dropbox, one file was added to one folder in one device, I forget, in like 1 week, or in HubSpot, they use 5 out of 20 features within 60 days, that if you achieve this amount, this type of usage within X period of time, that was delivering first value. And with that, then you can start getting the customers to start using the product, and then start this journey where they become standard workflow, full deployment, and so forth. The other part about understanding the key usage metric is it's important to make sure that you're able to close the link, the loop here, and that's with the pain, the usage, and the value. In other words, the pain is the reason why the customer bought the product. Usage is what the customer does with the product, and hopefully results in the value resulting from the usage, which then relieves the pain. So if you close this loop, then you know you're fulfilling basically the brand promise that you made to the customer. If not, then there's a high likelihood of churn, and you probably it's not the right key usage metric either, because driving that usage should create the value to the customer. So the first step, just want to say, is, when you want to find product market fit, it's about just picking the right teaching customers, listening to them, rapidly iterating to make them happy customers. That sort of gives you a quick path to product market fit. We define product market fit as having paying, active, referenceable customers, but that's just a way of defining product market fit. And as I mentioned, you need to have a leading metric, which is your key usage indicate metric, and a lagging metric, which is your gross and net churn or dollar retention. So that tells you whether you have happy customers. But as I mentioned, as we work with companies and we want to find a product market fit, we would then uncover one problem, which is the customers will churn. But the other big problem that we would face with companies as they found product market fit is that achieving product market fit is not enough to unlock growth. And so we would be in situations like this where we're so close to unlocking growth, but you can smell it, you can feel it. You can see your competitor right next to you who's caught the wave and is, on the wave being a surfing unicorn. But in the meantime, we're sort of stuck right there. It's so frustrating to be so close, but so far. I guess actually this sort of metaphor I'm realizing fits extreme tech, since it all started with kiting at extreme tech as the journey. But it's the idea of sort of being so close to surfing the wave, but to miss it. So what's required to really unlock growth? And it turns out that this is an early go-to-market evolution that found helpful. And that is, I'll tie it to product market fit in just a little bit, but just want to step back a little bit, take this digression to talk about how we look at early go-to-market evolution. In the beginning, there's always a beginning. In the beginning, it's basically founder growth. The founder does everything. Then we reach a stage where we unlock growth, where we first get some repeatability, then we scale growth and we optimize growth. So in the founder growth stage, in terms of a playbook, in other words, what company and people should do in terms of go-to-market, it's basically just taking directions from the founder. And the founder's usual message is just do what I do. But the founder is driving the playbook. And the key requirement really is, because there's a lot of founders selling, is the founder's passion, empathy, and creativity in talking with customers and coming out with deals that make sense for the customer. It tends to be a little custom, but it works. And the go-to-market team is led by the founder, and this is at the product market fit stage. To unlock growth, we need two things. We need something which is repeatable. So we need the first go-to-market playbook that, in other words, repeatable for someone other than the founder. So you can hire a new sales rep, a new marketing person, and they know what to do. And so they have this repeatable playbook. In our surfing metaphor, we think of it as having the right surfboard for the wave. The second thing that's important, it's missed a lot, is you need a lot of leads. You know, you need to basically catch that wave. If you don't have a lot of qualified leads, it's like almost whatever go-to-market technique you use, it's just going to be hard. And to get a lot of leads, you need to solve the go-to-market blocks. And I'll talk about that in just a second. So you need to unlock, and with those two things, you can unlock growth. And then once you unlock growth, it's all about scaling. I mean, once you unlock growth and everyone wants to invest in you, great people want to join you, and then you're actively scaling growth. And then once you start scaling growth, then it's about optimizing it. And so to make it successful. But let's talk about how to get a lot of leads. The usual answer to how to get a lot of leads is to hire a superhero like Thor. You know, it could be a superhero marketer that's great at inbound thought leadership, demand generation, or a superstar head of sales who's great at, you know, outbound prospect, has got a great Rolodex, you know, can build an SDR team to do it, or, you know, a BD person that signs up all these partnerships, or you can even, you know, customer success to get referrals. So the typical answer is hire a superhero. And then all of a sudden, this magic, which is lots of qualified leads, just happen. We've seen it doesn't really work that way. You do need to hire a superhero, but, you know, superhero is not enough. We also need a super weapon. And that is like Thor and the hammer. So what is a hammer is solving the key go-to-market fundamental blocks, which are why buy now, why you, and who is your target customer. So why buy now is an urgent pain. So the customers need to have an urgent pain. And what I mean by that is otherwise, if they don't, they can say, well, I can buy it 6 months from now, 12 months from now. But if you have an urgent pain, you got to like do it right now. The second is why you. And that could result in a long answer. And I mean, it could result in white papers and many things to do it. But as part of why you need something which makes it a quick answer why they should go to you. And it could be in a demo, it could be in a customer testimonial, it could be in it could be in a reference, but it's something that when you share, or it could be a product feature, it's something when you share, it changes the prospect's body language. You can tell that when your prospect goes from being a skeptic to becoming a champion. You know, the prospect, you'll see things like prospect wants to learn more. The prospect wants to really engage and understand what you're doing, is sort of saying, hey, I want you to go and present to my boss, or I want other team members to listen into it. You can tell is that what you have shared causes the prospect to take action to the next step in the customer journey. And so understanding what triggers that action is critical, because if you don't, then it's like hammering in the wrong place and it's like not moving along. And then lastly is understanding your ideal customer profile and use case. So we'll come back to these now go-to-market fundamental blocks and how they fit into finding product market fit. So as I mentioned, when you're finding product market fit, you're looking for these happy customers. We know the definition, leading metric, lagging metric. So as you're doing it, you're trying to answer these three questions of why now, why you, and who as you're finding go-to-market fit. And the way to do that is, and this is unfortunately a bit messy. It took a while. I was just working on it a little bit last night. It is what you want to do is you want to fill out basically this chart you see on the right-hand side, which is looking at different potential product market fit opportunities. So in other words, each row is like a customer profile. Each column is like a use case. And the middle one here is the founding idea. The founding idea is always about solving a particular problem, which is a use case for a specific type of customer. So this founding idea is for this target use case and this target customer. As you're trying to do this, it's good to cast a wider. So many times you receive the advice, when you're starting a company, just focus. And that means just work on the founding idea. What we found helpful though, is in the beginning is to also test your adjacencies. And so to cast a wider net. And so that's the first advice here is cast a wider net to test adjacency. It will feel like heresy because you're now pursuing something beyond just a founding idea. You want to collect all data, ask customers about adjacencies. Let's see. I have a couple of comments here that I thought would be good to which is good. I think it's good. It says our equity compensated board person came up with own CRM tools, very helpful in getting meets. Absolutely. Individuals are great at doing referrals and have so they have their Rolodex that they can leverage. But what you'll find is that that super individual is like Thor. They do still need to have the hammer. And so these are the things that we're coming up with. So what happens as you're doing this is as you collect data, what you're going to find is where you're getting customer traction or customer interest. And so for each potential product market fit, you can see how much traction you're getting. And in this particular case, this is where we saw a lot of traction. And so it makes sense for the company then to pivot from the founding idea to this new focus because it had both an urgent pain and a wow. Urgent pain answers the question, why buy now? And the wow is, what makes them pick you. With that. So once you have those elements, you're able to then solve go-to-market, this whole sort of unlock growth. And what that requires is having something repeatable, which is that go-to-market playbook. The leading metric that we track here is just getting lots of leads. So look at lead generation. And the lagging metric is the magic number. Magic number is measuring sales and marketing productivity, which is for every dollar that you spend on sales and marketing, how much new revenue that you're actually generating. So that's the magic number that comes out. The playbook I just want to go back to is something that's misunderstood is there are lots of playbooks, and at different stages, you want different types of playbooks. At this stage of the company, what you want ideally is a 1 or 2 page playbook, which in a sense is a way of explaining the entire go-to-market motion for the entire company. The reason why it's 1 to 2 pages is that if it's longer than that, people generally don't read it. So it's got to be simple, and that means 1 to 2 pages so the whole company can see it. The reason why it's important for the whole company to see it is that go-to-market is the ultimate cross-functional activity. It requires marketing to generate leads or to help close deals. Sales obviously is there to close deals. Customer success is there to make them successful and then renew and expand. Product dictates everything, since ultimately the customer wants the product. So it's the ultimate activity. And so you need something to coordinate and align all the functions. And that's what a one-page playbook does. It's a way of synchronizing everyone. So when a new person comes on board, they know why and what to do. So it'll have things like very clear of who is the target customer, how do you sell to them, and why they want to buy, in a way that's very action oriented. So they know at each step of the way what they need to do to advance the customer along their customer journey. So once you've unlocked growth, the next thing as a company you need to do is about scale and optimization, optimizing growth. And that brings you to becoming a category leader, and what we all hope everyone will be, to become a surfing unicorn. And the key thing here is basically to ride this virtuous cycle. And the virtuous cycle is that once you unlock growth, you're going to have fast customer acquisition, or faster than your competitors. You could be very early, but you have faster you're growing faster, basically. So you get recognized as an early category leader. So you raise money at a higher valuation. So with that, you can hire great employees, invest more aggressively to hire more customers. So you're growing even faster. And that reinforces you as a category leader. So then you close your Series C round at double the price, and then your Series D round at triple that price, and Series E. And so that's how we have companies like Talkdesk, which when we invested in $1 million ARR and is now, close to around the 10 billion, or Workato or Techion, we've seen companies go through this journey. But I think the key thing to remember is, as you're starting early, is, you're looking for product market fit, and you want obviously to get happy customers. When you're working on product market fit, the natural tendency is to work very linearly along this road to get product market fit, to drive to happy customers. It's really important to understand that just getting product market fit's not enough. You also need to unlock growth. And so you will, as you're pursuing product market fit, try to position yourself in a way that you can unlock growth by making sure you have your go-to-market fundamentals, which answers the question, why now, why you, and who, have those answered. So then you'll be positioned as well to unlock growth. And then once you unlock growth, then you need to be also in a position where you can scale and optimize growth to become this category leader and ride this virtuous cycle as well. So with that, just want to conclude that, as I mentioned, most startups that we work with all find product market fit. It just requires listening to your teaching customers and rapidly iterating so that you can make them happy. And with that, you can find product market fit. But as I mentioned, that product market fit by itself many times is not enough. What you want is, you want to find product market fit that retains your customers, even if your champion leaves, and can unlock growth. And so you can catch the wave of getting a lot of leads. So with that, want to thank you for this opportunity of sort of talking to you about sort of how to find product market fit. And I know I'm a bit early, but I also wanted to leave some time for questions. So if people have any questions, please let me know.
Yes, please folks, go ahead. don't see too much in chat, but if you want to raise your hands, or Victoria, go ahead.
Let's go through a couple of questions in chat, right? There's a question taking about, what do you mean by GTM go-to-market playbook? You said you talk about the 2-pager.
The go-to-market playbook is, so a playbook is something which tells people what to do. And so it basically tells people what the go-to-market action of the company is. And so, and I can send you samples, and there's samples like in our book as well too, but basically what it is, it tells you who your target customer is. Think of it this way: you hire a new sales rep, a new marketing person, and they want to know what is the go-to-market strategy for the company. And what you do is you give them the playbook, and on the left-hand side, they know exactly who the customer is, the ideal customer profile is. And so they know who the target customer is. And then they see the urgent pain and the wow. And so they know why the customer wants to buy. And then in it, you have the customer journey. In other words, the journey starts with where the customer needs to get aware of you. They need to get interested in you. They need to qualify you, pick you. You need to onboard them, make them successful. So you have the entire journey as well. And so then each step of the journey, what you have in there is what sales and marketing needs to say and do to get the customer to advance to the next stage of the journey. It's very simple in a way, because it's only 1 to 2 pages, but developing it requires a lot of work. And once you have it, people then know what they need to do.
Another question that's come up, and this has come up throughout the week, is the fact that in XTC, by the nature of our focus, we get a lot of hardware startups, actual making physical things. And I know you're covering that, but a lot of things about agile development and go-to-market adaptations seem to fit better with more quickly iteratable things like software. But if you're making a big, heavy thing, and I'm sure you've been involved in that, how is your model either different, or how does it apply in the hard goods space?
Absolutely. It's much harder to like respin a chip than, to revise a software feature. So it definitely takes longer in that regard. So what we're seeing is 2 different things. The first is that if you do have a long project, listening to the customer and getting the right customer requirements becomes even more important, because the fact that iteration takes, doing another spin of a chip takes so much time. So listening and understanding becomes so much more important. But the other thing is that what we're seeing is that even with hardware is that many of the hardware now comes where it's software configurable. So to the extent that you can build hardware which is software configurable, that will provide a significant advantage over something which is just pure hardware and fixed.
Yes, and I'll just say these are not just chips, these are like motors and gearboxes and physical construction pieces.
Yes.
Which one of the comments in previous sessions has been, a lot of those are more software configurable than you may imagine, but still sometimes it's just making a motor.
That's right. I think there's a trend. I mean, you can say it started with like going from feature phone to smartphone, but things that are more software configurable will have an advantage in the future.
Okay, let's see. Any other hands raised?
Yeah, John, just a quick reflection on this
Paul,
topic.
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was asking the harder question. So basically, my feeling is that the iteration is harder, slower, and more expensive. But I think that customer relationships are stronger in hardware. Perhaps churning is less of an effect. On one hand, you build a relationship through this long iteration and customer contact. You develop the products kind of together, tailor-made for the customer often. And then at the same time, it's harder for the customer to leave because they have your intimate relationship and they have the product that is tailor-made for them. So it might be actually a good side, bad side of the same coin, that perhaps slower and harder to build up the business, but then it might be longer term and more stable than in software. What do you think?
Well, I think both can be very good businesses. So I'm not trying to say one's good and one's bad. I think both can be good. And the place I disagree is that software can be incredibly sticky. I would say even stickier than hardware. But the opportunity is, whether it's hardware or software, I find the most successful companies are the ones that help their champion become heroes, gets them promoted because they did a great job. Like I'll tell you, like Marketo is a marketing software company, and the early product was email marketing. You could call it spam, how to spam better. But and the early users were managers of email marketing, but it turns out that Marketo taught a way of how to do demand generation, and so, which is how to generate leads, how to generate new pipeline. And so people that all of a sudden were using Marketo were taught how to do demand generations, and companies immediately started looking for VP and directors of demand generation because, they don't want marketing just to brand. They want marketing to generate leads for sales. And so that became very successful. And then CEOs were looking for CMOs who could generate pipeline. So all of a sudden, the VP of demand generation became CMOs of very successful companies. And so this is an example of how a software tool can help someone get promoted to become superstars in their careers. And so they become beholden to the product and the methodology. At the same time, as the company uses the software, what happens is the software gets a lot of data. It gets integrated with like tons of other software from other systems like CRM, ERP, other. And so to extract out that software is like doing a heart transplant, becomes very difficult for the company.
All right, William, you have your hand raised. Oh,
I'm sorry. There was a question I see here. It says, you talked about adjacencies.
Oh, sure.
Will it not lead to losing focus? And I think that's absolutely the critical point here is, in a way, yes, the answer is it may lead to losing focus on the founding idea, because many times the urgent pain is not the founding idea, but it's something adjacent to the founding idea.
And before I go to William, Pankaj, did you want to? Okay, thank you. So William, you had your hand raised.
Tahi, I absolutely loved your conversation. I am so excited. If my camera was on, you would have seen me like paddling with you. It's timely because I wanted to share a learning, because we just sent our first contract out for our first paying customer. And so one of the learnings that we had, so we're a B2B software company right now. We have got a meeting automation tool that takes the grunt work, that removes the grunt work for the meeting organizer. And so one of the things that we learned along this journey so far is capitalizing on the momentum and the energy once you have someone hooked. And so you don't want a single point of failure. And so what we did is we said, all right, well, how do we take that one champion that absolutely loves what we're doing, that sees that we can solve this problem within their organization and scale it, and say, all right, who else within their team needs to see this right away? And so we build up this cadence and then these quotes that we get every week from them to see if we're on or off track. And that was one of the things that we did to get this going. But I wanted to share that because it was a learning from a previous business venture. When you have a single point of failure, then everything else just kind of falls out from underneath you. So I just wanted to share that with the team that was on here. But I resonated with the paddling, having surfed in the Bay Area, and I know what it's like trying to paddle and pop up. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just got one from Microfuse. What do you think is the workaround scenario when the champion leaves? He's asking, and you may see this in chat. He's asking about the story you told when your core champion quits and you're left without a champion. What is your workaround or backup for that?
Well, if you're realize it at that point, many times it's too late. What you need to do is exactly like what was just mentioned earlier, is just the comment earlier, when he was talking about going from paddling to surfing, is you have to, in a sense, work with and through your champion to get adoption by others. If you don't get adoption by anyone other than the champion, then it's a high likelihood of churning.
So I guess that's sort of looking through him or her to the rest of the company and seeing if it's getting any further traction.
Or whatever the target user group is. Like if it's a tool for the finance team, it doesn't mean the whole company needs to use it, but to make sure it's not just your champion, but others depend on it. I mean, basically what's going to happen is that when the champion leaves, no one else they're going to say, well, does anyone else know about this tool? Is anyone using it? They go, no. Okay, then let's cancel.
Okay. And another question that has been asked previously is basically, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, we just got a new one. Well, he's saying, what's the difference between champion and customer, which...
Yeah, so I think that's a great point. And I look at it as customer generally many times as the company, the buyer, the actual company. But within the company, you have different people. You have maybe the champion, you may have the champion's boss that has the budget, you have like maybe IT's involved, CF finance organizations involved. So it's just sort of parsing this through helps understand. I mean, the best situations is if all of these personas is the same person. In other words, if the user and the buyer and the approver and all that is the same person, that's easy, then it's great. And you can see that many times with product, that results in product-led growth where the user just takes the company credit card, swipes it, buys it, uses it, and then, starts thriving and so forth. Yeah.
So the other question was about basically if you have if your technology or your product is fairly fundamental, so there's several different go-to-market paths it could choose. This is sort of a meta question about, and there are many answers, I'm sure, but your thoughts and insights on if you have multiple go-to-markets, how do you either prioritize them, or do you try to do several of them as backups, or do you pick one? How do you sort of handle that if what you have is a more of a tool or a fundamental breakthrough that could go in several directions?
So this is both a blessing and a curse, and something that we've been dealing with. And what we found is if you have multiple go-to-market, good go-to-market options, and you have many founders can pursue all of them simultaneously at the same time. So from a founder perspective or the CEO perspective, they're very good at doing that. It's just, and this, what I mean by that is like, going after large enterprise or, different types of customer segments, or it could be, whether it's marketing led, product led, sales led, inside or in field. I mean, different types of motions and so forth. So founder or the CEO is very good at like switching from one to the other. What we've also found is that other than the founder and maybe one other person, no one else in the company can do that. And so when we have this sort of kind of Swiss Army knife approach, the go-to-market stalls. Go-to-market works really well for vast majority of people if it's a very simple, repetitive motion.
Mhm.
That's how you go from like 100 customers to 10,000 customers.
And actually, this one in chat is a follow-up to that, which is as you're looking at these different ones, a lot of large customers love to have free feasibility studies, but it's very hard to convert those into paying projects. And any thoughts on how to pick and choose, or how to triage, if you will, some of these
see,
free
that
projects?
to me just says that there's no urgent pain. That means they're interested. And it could become an urgent pain, but as of today, there's no urgent
Okay.
pain.
So it's part of the really teasing out urgency from
Yes.
general interest.
Yes, or future interest,
Mm-hmm.
or personal passion.
So I guess one of the parsings would be, among those, find where the greatest urgency and pain is.
Yes, that's why urgent. That's why we use this term urgent pain.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a simple term, and the reason why I'm sort of fixated on it is that you can't just focus on urgency or just the pain. It's urgent
pain.
Yes, it took us a long time to come up with that one phrase.
Anyway,
Like an Eisenhower matrix.
I'm sorry.
Urgent versus, it's like the Eisenhower matrix. Urgent versus important.
Yeah.
Like, is it important or is it urgent? Yeah.
Any way to make it urgent somehow, to modify the product?
It's very hard to do that. Creating urgency is very hard. People talk about creating compelling events and that kind of stuff. I think if you need to do that, then you're generally in the wrong area. It's better, I find, to paddle someplace else.
And actually, one just came up. Can you give an example of an urgent pain that you found or leveraged? What would that look like?
Oh, there are lots of examples. I mean, like one of our companies, Interactio, they do real-time simultaneous translation online. COVID hit, EU couldn't have physical meetings. They need to have virtual meetings with 27 translators. So you have this urgent pain. It's like, how do you keep running government, virtually with translators? And then Interactio got adopted very quickly, and it's done very well. Another example of an urgent pain a while ago, but just to give you, is Mobile Iron's case. This is when Blackberries were hot, and CEOs one Christmas all got iPhones. They came back and told IT, I want to switch from BlackBerry to iPhone. And the IT guy says, well, iPhones are not secure, so you can't use it in the company. And then the CEO says that's an unacceptable answer. So all of a sudden, there's an urgent pain to manage and secure iPhones so that executives could use them. We see like companies aren't getting the ROI that they need on their marketing. And so all of a sudden, then there's a company, Blue Shift, we have, which is doing AI marketing. And so then the customers come in and say, we need to improve our ROI. We can see that you've done it to our competitors, and so we'd like to have you. urgent pain just, it's not, when you have it, you know you have it. It's just that many times people hope it is, it's what they have is an urgent pain.
And we'll pretty much have to wrap up. I'll just say that one last comment was, is urgent pain sustainable? And my guess
No,
is you just
it
needed to get
changes.
in the door. And
That's
then
right.
once you're in the door,
That's right.
you can sustain it
And
otherwise.
just because it's an urgent pain today may not be an urgent pain 2 years from now.
So you have to strike while the pain is hot.
But also you have to keep in mind that constantly looking for that urgent pain that may be around you.
Or coming up.
Yep.
All right, we're at the top of the hour and we're actually back to back with our third session for today. So thank you, Tehi, very much for this. I know it's always one of our most popular sessions and people were really engaged. Cannot thank you enough for taking the time to do this.
Oh, no, I enjoyed it. And if
and
you have any questions, just let me know. Thank
well,
you.
and we'd love to get your slides and some of the examples you mentioned, and we'll post those to the finalists.
Okay, sounds good. All right.